Hey folks, Cam Rogers coming at you from the Georgia World Congress Center here in Atlanta, getting you set for the College Football Playoff National Championship game, Georgia and Alabama. I'm alongside Rick Neuheisel, who of course is the CBS.
Cam, I'm sitting here. I thought we were doing a radio hit, and I realized you're actually on camera.
Oh, it's lights, camera, action here, Rick.
You've got this face for this. I got a face for radio. You got to let me know.
Hey, well, surprise, surprise, you're on camera right now, and of course you've seen him on CBS as a college football analyst. Rick, we appreciate you coming along. How you doing?
I am terrific. It's always exciting to be a part of the scene that is the culmination of another great college football season. And I know there are those out there that have a little SEC fatigue and or Alabama fatigue because they seemingly are always on this stage, but as the saying goes, if you don't like them, beat them.
Exactly.
And for right now, you can't. So I think we're going to be treated to a whale of a ball game.
No doubt about it. Two SEC teams going at it, Rick, Alabama and Georgia, respectively. And, you know, there's that storyline with the whole Kirby Smart, former assistant, going up against Saban, the 11-0 record. Can Kirby buck that trend?
Well, he can. I mean, it's an interesting game because unlike the week ago where the styles were so contrasting with Georgia and Oklahoma, their styles are very similar. So to me, the key to the game is Jim Chaney, the offensive coordinator for Georgia's ability to kind of become a chameleon and change. Alabama's going to do everything they can to take away Chubb and Michelle downhill. All right, that portion, what you saw a week ago, isn't going to happen against Alabama's defense if they have anything to say about it. With that being said, committing the numbers that it's going to take to get that done is going to create some opportunities outside. How does Jim Chaney motion, shift to create those things where Jake Fromm can execute it to the point where they can stay consistently on the field?
I do want to ask you about Nick Saban. Now, he has a chance to tie Paul Bear Bryant for most national titles ever. And as a former coach yourself, you look at Saban, and is he just a once-in-a-generation type of coach?
Well, I think he's the best of all time.
Wow.
I don't think it's close. And I think but for the fact that Bear Bryant was also an Alabama coach, I think this narrative would be much more widespread than it is currently because there's such a reverence to Bear Bryant in Alabama. So the Alabama faithful aren't ready to just put it out there that Nick Saban is the greatest of all time. But looking at the consistency that he has shown in his tenure in Tuscaloosa, the ability to bring in the top flight players, manage their egos, and get the productivity that he's got out of them, manage as many coaches as they have. Remember, he's the guy who brought the term analyst to the world of college football, which is nothing more than a 20-man assistant coaching staff. Half are coaching the team, half are getting ready for recruiting and or the next opponent. But he has managed all of it as beautifully as anybody in the game's ever managed it. He's got resources to do everything that he imagines. He's come up with new ideas within the rules, whether it's the injury tent on the sideline where you can't see what's happening there to keep some measure of secrecy as to kids' availability. I mean, he's a savant when it comes to organizing, to looking forward, and to arranging for as much advantage as is humanly possible, and it plays itself out on the field.
You know, in terms of the X's and O's here, Rick, of course you have the familiarity between these two in Smart and Saban. Is there really an advantage either way, or is it just a wash? Because we could see some new wrinkles in this game.
Well, Kirby, having been at Alabama just a couple years ago, will know the personnel better in terms of their idiosyncrasies, better than Saban will know the Georgia personnel. But that being said, given all these analysts and given their tasks over the course of the year, and in particular this last month, most of those stones will have been unturned or overturned since. So I'm saying this to say I don't think that will be an advantage one way or the other.
One of the more interesting concepts in sports is the tendency to get complacent. And as a former coach yourself, how did you deal with that, if you had any of that actually to begin with when you were coach? The complacency, the lack of hunger among your players, how do you keep them hungry? What is the tool?
Well, for Nick Saban, he's not into celebration. You know, I always enjoyed the game such to the point where the pain of loss was such that you could not wish it away.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to endure it and wait till it passed. That I wasn't going to live in a world where I didn't enjoy it when I won. I wanted to make sure the exhilaration of victory matched the pain of despair.
Right.
So that there was some sense and balance in my life. What am I doing, right? Nick doesn't have that same chip. Nick does, while the pain is, I'm sure, intense, he's on to the next thing, and he's not much into celebration. It's not, he doesn't need it like maybe I did or others might need it. And so his ability to keep moving, keep striving is his motivation. I don't know that would have worked for me, but it works for him.
There's certainly many different styles out there, and Rick, one of the big-time storylines across the college football playoff landscape right now is perhaps the idea of expansion. Let's face it, we're in the infancy of the playoff.
Right.
Right now we're with 4 teams. Could you see a time when we get to maybe 8, maybe 10, 12 teams?
Well, I can. I think the idea that we want more representation, cross-section of the country. You know, we've had 5 conferences left out of the college football playoff in the first 4 years. The Pac-12 twice, the Big 12 twice, and now the Big 10. What those teams all have in common is they all played 9 conference games. And so because the economics are not equal in all portions of the country in terms of how you put together your schedule, to make it fair, I think we need to eventually get to a system where 1 team from each from the Power 5 or 2 teams. I actually would advocate for 2 teams from each of the Power 5. A champion from the Group of 5, the UCF team would be included.
Yep.
And then the one at-large for that, you know, rare year where a third team is really good from one of the Power 5 conferences, or maybe a second team from the Group of 5. So you get 12, you'd seed them, the top 4 teams would get a bye, and in this deal, you would see Ohio State to get to play again. Wisconsin would play again. Penn State would play again. And just like we've seen over the history, teams get hot at the end. There's nothing like watching a couple of hot teams come to a place and play for it all.
It certainly will be interesting to follow along with, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about UCLA. Chip Kelly, your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a great hire. I feel badly for Jim Mora because I know how hard the job can be at times, playing against USC in the same town. The reason I think it's going to work this time is I think Chip had such leverage, you know, in determining where he wanted to come back and land in college football, that he was able to ask the kind of questions in those interviews to make sure that he was going to get what was necessary to compete at the highest level. The nutrition issues, the strength and conditioning issues, the ability to make sure that everything was going to be as top-notch as it can be. I know firsthand that UCLA is a wonderful school. I know firsthand it's got great tradition. I know firsthand it can recruit at the highest level because of where it sits.
Yep.
And the attractiveness of a UCLA education. All that's in place. Now it's financing your expectations, and I think Chip Kelly had the clout because of who he was and what he's accomplished to ask the administration at UCLA to commit those resources. Otherwise, I don't think he'd be there.
One of the greatest minds in all of college football. Rick Neuheisel joining the show here. Rick, we appreciate the time and enjoy the day.
I definitely will.
All right.
Always sad to see college football go away, but let's enjoy it.
Yes. Let's hit a break here in College Football Daily. We'll be right back.